Amphibia's final battle is finally here, with the hour-long penultimate episode All In, premiering this Saturday at 8 p.m., an episode that won't be released early on demand prior. The TV premiere will be the first time the world gets to see it, just like the actual series finale, which will air the following week. To hype everyone up for the final stand, Disney has dropped a promo for this spectacular event, alongside a dope poster, which was first featured at the Gallery Nucleus Amphibia exhibit as a gift for those who attended. This promo shows the insane matchups we'll get during this showdown. Anne versus Andrias, Sasha versus Darcy, the Boonjoys versus the very beast that took out Sprig and Polly's parents. It's intense. And there's some dark implications that not every fan favorite character will make this out alive, especially Grime. As always, we're going to run through this breakdown for all the details you may have missed. And to stay in the loop of all things Amphibia, please be sure to subscribe to the roundtable with notifications on so you never miss a video. It really helps us out. Also be sure to check out Toon Drip. With all that said, let's dive in. The poster for this epic event is basically one big roll call that shows the major players fighting for Earth. Anne, powered up with Calamity mode in full swing. Sasha, with both her blades in hand. Grime, ready to rumble with Beryl's Warhammer. Polly's kicking the air. Yunan strikes her best Wolverine pose. Olivia looks off dramatically. Hop-Hop's throwing hands. The Boonjoys are decked out in some top-notch war drip, looking like they're fresh out of Halo, confirming their alliance with the FBI after the events of Escape to Amphibia. Speaking of which, Mr. X is seen striking a pose confirming his allyship, with his assistant Jenny remaining reserved behind him. Frobo has a colorful overhaul, appearing to have a significant upgrade that may have come from the FBI. Considering Jess and Allie promised Polly an upgrade for Frobo, I wonder if they'll be shown working with Mr. X and his team, responsible for the look and features of Frobo's final form. Lastly, for the good guys, we have Sprig holding Leif's letter, one likely addressed to Andrias, as he can only read it with his glasses, giving Sprig the integral role of getting through to Andrias in this finale. A tall order, given that he's the spitting image of Leif. As for the antagonist, let's start with Andrias, who appears to be rather conflicted now that the invasion is finally underway. He definitely has Leif on his mind as he goes through with the event she desperately tried to stop, even ruining their friendship to do so, coupled with the core constantly belittling Andrias. I think we can safely say he's gonna turn on his master in this special. One of my top predictions for a character who's going to make a sacrifice. Speaking of the devil, an excited Darcy is right next to Andrias, excited to conquer the world, while a giant mech looms above them. From the promo, we know this giant robot will be piloted by Andrias as he goes toe-to-toe with Anne once more. And to the side of the robot are two herons, which may be the same ones responsible for eating Sprig and Polly's parents. And antagonists aside, we can see Domino 2 evading death beams from Dark Frobos. Absolute queen behavior. Alright, now on to the promo. The citizens of Los Angeles are in absolute shock and terror as Andrias' army arrives on the planet, with one of these civilians being the iconic Pepper Ann, walking her dog. Pepper Ann was a big influence on Amphibia, so having the titular lead character cameo in the finale is pretty neat to see. Andrias hilariously congratulates Earth on being conquered by his empire. And the promo makes it look like Darcy presses a big red button that activates the castle's deadly cannon, but as we saw in True Colors, the cannon is directly powered and operated by the Calamity Box. So I believe the button Darcy presses here activates one of the many giant robots in their arsenal, perhaps the mech suit Andrias uses to fight Anne. The Calamity Cannon blasts a Hollywood sign into smithereens. I hope no one happened to be up there, as Anne and the Planters are jaw-dropped at the mayhem unfolding before their very eyes. But considering Frobo is in his dope new upgrade, and the Planters don't have spore collars around their neck after being taken for a fitting previously, I assume this is a bit further into the episode than it may initially seem. But because of that, I wonder if everyone is reacting to a different blast, as I can't imagine someone would be hanging around minutes after an invasion begins to have a photo snapped of themselves for the gram. Who knows though? Instagram likes might be worth risking it all during an alien frog invasion. We cut to our first look of the core's hive mind from within, as Andrias' father, Aldrich, seems to be keeping Darcy distracted by showing her places within the core's hive mind, which retains the core's computeristic aesthetic, something I found really cool as we're in the mind. the land shifting from what looks like the castle's library to a world with floating islands. Reminds me of old school Sonic, of course. I imagine Aldrich is following through on Andrias' false promise of taking Marcy on adventures in new worlds, or perhaps he's showing her the history of the Leviathan Empire, manipulating things to appear in a positive light. Later on, we see a mythical dragon soar above Marcy's head in this digital world, and a little after, we see Marcy press her head against her forehead as she remarks that she can't help but feel like she's forgetting something important, conveying to the viewer that the core is actively suppressing her memory, blocking out the events of true colors and the subsequent possession by the core. The important thing Marcy's forgetting is likely her friends, to which Aldrich could try to dismiss the idea entirely, as he clearly resents friendships. Or he could try appeasing Marcy by conjuring up projections of Anne and Sasha. We also have the voiceover of Sasha saying, "And that thing knows our every move," which I assume is her talking to Grime while trying to combat the core. And taps into her Calamity powers, as Andrias' gigantic battle mech forms around him, the Mad King declaring it's time for their rematch. There's also countless Dark Frobos behind him. Andrias has been shown to be a huge sore loser, and Anne was kicking his butt before she passed out in True Colors, so it only makes sense that he makes their next showdown a big deal, putting his pride on the line in a desperate attempt to make his father proud by killing Anne. If we jump back to the core of the king, we can actually see a prototype of this mech in the background during Andrias' pursuit of Leif. So whether Anne was a factor or not, this weapon was presumably always designed for the invasion of Earth. Anne has a superhero landing. I imagine this will be her returning alongside Sasha and Grime to defeat Andrias and Darcy at the castle, after initially escaping earlier in the episode, leading into her big rematch. The Boonchoys appear to be taking cover within a bus as the beak of a heron bursts through the roof. Given that Sprig and Polly's parents were killed by 2 herons, there's a lot more emotional weight to this scene than what we can feel here in the promo. Who knows? Hop Pop feels like he failed to save Sprig and Polly's parents from the herons, so saving Anne's parents from the same fate may be his big sacrificial moment. Or he'll still be the one to save them, but they'll all live after a fake out. We have a beautifully animated shot of Super Anne making a mad dash towards an adversary, probably Andrias, stitched with a different shot of Super Anne struggling to hold her own against his mech, being stopped dead in her tracks by the gigantic robot fist. We actually see Anne and Sasha form a battle strategy with the Planters, the Boonchoys, Mr. X, Grime, Olivia, and Yunan, with them planning to infiltrate the castle from a lower corridor, likely the domain of the core. We also see the 2 herons that the Boonchoys face off against crossed out in red, with stick figures of the Boonchoys and Mr. X circled. This got me thinking that the confrontation with the heron wasn't coincidental on their end, but a coordinated attack, as the herons' defeat may either turn the tides of battle in a major way, or the herons could be guarding something valuable. It's also so satisfying to see the Boonchoys fight alongside everyone, on top of Mr. X finally joining the good guys, and although they aren't present in the promo or poster, I hope the other Earth allies pop up in the special, even if Escape to Amphibia would be a satisfying enough send-off for them. It's an hour long, so there's plenty of time. The Planters hang on to Frobo as they soar into battle, while Super Anne is shown to barely evade the missiles fired at her by the Dark Frobos. A moment that was hinted at through the end of the Season 3 opening, finally coming to life during this battle. I assume Anne getting smacked around by the mech and struggling to dodge all these missiles is all a part of a sequence where she learns control over her powers in the heat of battle. Darcy is seen staring at a monitor, judging by the color of the light on her face, but as the clip fades to black, the color shifts from a bluish green to red. I assume this may be Sasha and Grime re-infiltrating the core's domain, or Darcy watching Andrias fail spectacularly, taking matters into their own hands. So here's where things start to look very dark for Sasha and Grime, and we're gonna have to jump around the promo a little bit. Sasha dual wields her swords against Darcy, stating she's here to save Marcy and stop the core. Darcy retorting with,
"Let's roll, girlfriend,"
initiating battle. Grime is shown fending off the core's deadly tentacles with Barrel's warhammer, implying the core will try to keep them separated during this battle, because while Grime is fighting the core's tentacles, Sasha is squaring off against Darcy, who's equipped with one of the sickest scythes I've ever seen in animation. Darcy lunging at Sasha, who's knocked onto her feet and can only stare back as this evil entity seals the deal on taking her life. But here's the thing, a few seconds earlier in the promo, we see Sasha with tears in her eyes in the same position, retaining an expression of complete shock. So with all this laid out on the table, it's looking like Grime will end up taking that critical hit from Darcy's scythe, possibly meeting an unfortunate end. However, Sasha still has her cape and shoulder pads on here, but there's another shot of her in this chamber with those garments removed, gasping once more. So I think there's a good chance Grime has a fake out death, one that prompts Sasha to get angry and go buck wild on Darcy, maybe even tapping into her own Calamity powers if the connection to her stone is reestablished. And afterwards, Grime reveals he's A-okay, prompting her to power down. But it's worth mentioning the animated version of the poster on DVTVA's social media has only Anne, the planters, and Sasha present at the very end, soaring up to the castle, implying that they could be the only ones present for the last stand. But if that's the case, where's Grime? Why isn't he here? Could it be because they only wanted the characters that make up Anne's two trios to be present? Maybe, but I don't know. It feels like it could be an ominous hint. While Amphibia is still ultimately a kid's cartoon, it's pushed the barriers so many times that part of me would love to have my heart ripped out by Hop Pop, Grime, and Andrias all having individual sacrifices that complete their character arcs. A frog, a toad, and a newt all playing a role in saving the world. Not just the world, but the multiverse. Olivia and Yunan appear to face off against another Cloakbot, and we see Anne rolling backwards on the floor of Utopia Castle, nearing the edge. Something about this imagery in particular really made me realize how different the design philosophies of Earth and Amphibia are. The architecture of Amphibia contracting directly against Earth's civilization. It really does feel like two different worlds colliding together. Marcy's hand is shown opening a door that fades to white, which I assume may be her stumbling upon memories that the core is actively trying to repress, or her leaving the core's hive mind altogether. And lastly, we have an anime shot of Anne standing tall as her fists crackles with blue electricity, which we can only imagine is her standing off against Andrias or even Darcy. And with that, the promo comes to a close. What are your predictions for the big final battle? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below and keep the conversation going by giving us a follow at Vox and at Roundtable Vids on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to check out Toon Drip, consider leaving us a thanks, and if you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great Amphibia content. We're almost at the finish line, but after the show ends, there still will be much to talk about. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. See ya!